Welcome to Green Fashion Dialogues, the official podcast of the STARS project. I'm Simona Vettore, junior expert in circular economy and your host. STARS is part of the Erasmus Plus program, co-financed by the European Union. In this episode, we welcome back Luigi Della Sala, European project writer, trainer and consultant. Together, we'll dive into the vast topic of design thinking, a powerful tool for creating new products and services through a more innovative and human-centered approach. We'll walk you through the main steps and share some practical tips to help you start using this impactful method. Let's dive in. Good morning. Hi, Luigi.
Hi,
Welcome back. Welcome back to our podcast and Green Fashion Dialogues series. How is it going?
all cool, all very nice actually. So there is sun today, so I'm pretty happy.
That's nice.
What's about you? All cool?
All cool. Yeah, cool in the real sense because it's really cold outside.
Okay.
So today I invite you to talk about an interesting and useful topic that is design thinking. I think that will be very interesting for our community to start familiarize with this set of tools. So I want to just start by asking you what is design thinking and what is used for?
Okay, that's a nice question. I would say that design thinking is, I would say that it's a procedure or a process for which ideas come to life. But in a way, right now, in the last years, it has been defined as even, I would say, a set of cognitive, strategic, and practical procedures that are used basically by designer, or I would say right now by people in general, to define prototype to be tested for solving a problem or an issue, a problem in society or an issue in community. So I would say it's a way of in a wide and large sense, it became a methodology for defining a project, even I would say, which is the way in which us as a project designer we use it. But let's say more scientifically, it's a set, I would say, of procedures for defining a project.
Okay, so a set of procedure that can be used in many aspects. So not only design actually, but in many sectors and industries. So how can we use it, and where do you think that it can be the most useful as a tool to design?
I think that once that this was designed, that was between the 50 and the 60, okay, so 1950, 1960, the big added value that the procedure brought was how the procedure was disruptive, was to put human at the center, in the sense that there is no need for a project if it doesn't solve a real issue. If I have to say in words, everybody will understand, okay? And I think that this, even if for us now, it might be something that is granted, it wasn't before. So I think that the added value that the methodology brought to a way in which people design a project, or it's the fact that we don't design a project anymore, but we solve an issue. So, which is actually the first step of the design of any design thinking procedure, the fact that you put human at the center. So there is a human-centered approach. And I think that this was nice, was super useful, so that we don't do things just for doing them. But we do a certain thing, so we develop a certain project in order to answer to a problem that we see or we find in society. So, and it's something that it was applied at the beginning to design processes only. And when I say design, I don't mean brand identity, but for example, industrial design. Okay, so when you design prototype, for example, for a certain product. But right now, it's something that you can apply to pretty much everything in a way, in the sense that if you bring it to your own life, I think it can be pretty disruptive because it pushes you to ask constantly why you are doing a certain thing. It might be tiring even at some point, but I think it's very useful because in a way, first of all, it's useful by definition because it pushes you to know yourself better, because it pushes you to ask questions to yourself why you want to do a certain thing. And secondly, because there is more possibility that the thing that you're going to design, being an activity, a prototype for something or whatever actually, any kind of activity if you want, it will be more rooted on something real. So it's going to solve a real problem rather than being there to be there. So it was born anyway as a theory for designing prototype uh, for industry, for output and indeed industry products and output. But after I think that the applicability of the methodology was a little bit wider than this.
Sure. And you gave us many interesting keywords that we can use to understand better this topic. For example, disruptive. It's design thinking. It's really disruptive, not only in the way it is used, so human-centered solution to innovate and create new product, new service, new business models, human-centered, so focused on the needs of the people. And on the other side is also disruptive in the way it is approached, so in the way the process of thinking and producing ideas. So let's start by
Maybe on this, just a step before on this, that is very important. In a way, and this has been the power, I would say, of the design thinking theory, I would say, or maybe I shouldn't say theory, design thinking in general, is that the term before was referring only to a cognitive style, like a way of thinking, let's say, no? Thinking like a designer, for example. After from this, we moved to a general theory of design. So design, which is what I was saying before. So designing product following the design thinking theory. And after it enlarged even more and it became a set of tools and procedures, I would say, linked to the theory in itself. So at the beginning it was just a way of thinking, indeed a cognitive style. After it moved to be a real theory that it has been used much more than just a way of thinking. For us, I think it was both in our own profession, which is designing solution to social problems, I would say. It was first a way of thinking. And right now we are really applying as a methodology for developing projects. So it was very interesting. And we developed tools, of course, if you want, very specific to the way in which we work, that allow this design thinking to be applied more easily. And it's very interesting to see this in practice, in the sense that while we develop a project, we have, template that help us, which are very, very easy actually, either Google Doc or Word template, that help us in developing a project, starting from asking a few questions, for example. So it was really something that it grew in a way from a cognitive style to a theory to a set of tools.
Mhm, mhm. And do you think it's more as a rigid structure or it's very customizable?
I think it's not rigid in the sense that it also evolved and it is open to evolve because if you look at the different steps that has been included in the theory, and I'm talking about the design thinking theory here. I mean, very much in theory again, there are 5 steps that define the design thinking methodology. But these steps have been also, how can I say, upgraded and updated, following changes in society and changes in way of thinking, And I think that also they are big and wide enough to contain inside different elements that can be adapted and changed. Anyway, the first phase, the first step of the design thinking is empathize, is called. For example, before it was not called empathize. This is something that was born in the last years. Empathize, it means to have human at the center. It's very human-centered, both in the way that it solves a problem that is identified in society and in the way in which the methodology is applied. It's very important that the person feel in control of this methodology and can change it. So already by looking at the first step, I would say that the theory is not as rigid as another one, let's say, because it put human at the center. So I would say that my answer would be that it's not too rigid. After, like any theory and many methodology, maybe it can become rigid, I would say. But it depends on the application that you do, that you promote.
Yes, of course. Even if it's not so rigid and very customizable in the way we can create templates, as you said, that are set on our needs, there are, let's say, some stages, at least 3 stages that are recurrent in the way we approach design thinking. The first one is finding a problem and then creating a solution around that problem. And finally, the prototyping. Can we go a little bit deeper through these 3 main stages?
The first is the most important one, and what was really, at least in our case, a sort of revolution. It means to find a problem in society, to identify a problem in society, contextualize it, and then as well research, collect data, no, that somehow give us information on what is this problem that we want to solve with our solution. It's a point that is extremely important, and I think that in 2024 today, when we have sustainability issues in a way, in the sense that it seems that we have too many things, also in general, too many outputs and products, and there are too many things that are produced, too many activities that are done. I think it's really crucial. It's a very important step, because sometimes we realize that we do things just for doing them, but not because they solve a real issue in society. So I think that the first issue, it's very important. The first step, is very important. And it was really, I think, defined since the beginning, the methodology as revolutionary. So it's really all about identifying a problem inside a community or inside a society, collecting data and strengthening, reinforcing the reason why there is such a problem. What are the features of this problem? And it's a very important step, because all the rest follow this. So there is not a pre-cooked solution that we want to apply. Here we are not talking, it sounds like something banal or stupid, but it's not. In the way in which, for example, we develop project in the past, sometimes it was, we want to make a training program on digital literacy. Well, you wouldn't start a project in this way now. You will try to identify what is a problem inside society before saying, I want to develop a training program in digital literacy. So it's a pretty big change of perspective if you apply it very, very thoroughly in your own process. Because it's not really said that maybe society need a training program on digital literacy, maybe. I'm saying something very banal now, but just to give a taste of how it can change the way in which you work on every day, let's say.
Sure, and it makes even more sense since now people are more and more, let's say, focused on finding solution to their own problem, because time and money are not so much. We have a lot of things to do, and our money is we don't have so much money to spend, so we need to be really selective in what we need to buy or to spend our time with. So starting from the problems of people is a very destructive way of creating new solutions.
In fact, this definition of problem, that was the first, let's say, classic step of the design thinking. Right now, this became as well empathize, in a way that it's not just about the problem in itself, but as well understanding and empathizing with the needs and perspective of the users of that specific situation. So it became larger a little bit compared to the beginning, and it can entail a lot of different activity, from market research, from interviews, surveys, focus groups. So really try to include users and contextualizing as much as you can a given problem that you might see or that you might feel in a way. For example, what I have as a designer is that I feel things, but I don't understand them. It's for me very, very difficult. I enter in a room and I feel that someone is in pain, but that there is a given problem in a meeting, for example. I really feel it physically, but I'm not really able to understand it very well. So I need a lot of data to move from feeling to understanding. And this is very crucial, because if I will develop a solution only above only on my feeling, upon my feeling, maybe the solution will not be enough. No.
Sure.
So it's really, it entails concrete activities in a way, among which, for example, for an output and a product, market research is extremely important, including users. Think about any possible digital output, no, or digital product. We develop a lot of different platforms or I don't know, a campaign on Instagram. I mean, in theory, before launching any campaign, you are supposed to talk to people and see, including users before, and checking whether for them it might be important, what are the issues and whether your campaign go to solve this issue, for example.
Okay, so thank you. I want to ask you, how so can we collect data? Because we can collect data from talking to people, from social media, from what else?
I would say really interviews, different surveys that you can do, meetings with people, generally observations, interviews. Another form of research are those that are the most used, let's say, for contextualizing and defining a problem. If you imagine right now in the last 2 or 3 years with the coming of artificial intelligence, this became even easier, no? Because through a conversation with different artificial intelligence system, you can get important research data that are going to somehow help you in contextualizing this problem that you see, that you discover, that you want to solve. So I would say mostly it's a research, market research, and users' involvement and engagement. And user involvement and engagement, it can be done through interviews, focus groups, surveys as well. So there are different, let's say, methods used. After, it really depends on the problem, on the project you're working on.
And can you give us a few examples of good questions to ask to people to better understand their needs?
That's a very nice question. I can bring an example. We developed, we are developing, even if it is already available, a platform that use artificial intelligence system to write Erasmus Plus proposals. Okay. So we involved a lot of project designers and project developers in defining the features of the platform since the beginning of the process. And we try to have open conversation with them, whereas we wouldn't pre-assume problems that they have, but we would give like open questions. So, for example, and that was very difficult for me because I was very biased as a project developer. So I would pose question at the beginning like, do you think this is a problem?
Okay.
And I think that this is a wrong way to do, because you put people in front, first of all, of a binary choice. They can only answer yes or no.
Okay.
But they cannot really, they don't have the time and the occasion to really explain what is their problem. So you are assuming that this is an issue, but maybe it's not. So you should rather ask for open questions. So rather than saying, do you think that the rigidity of the application form is an issue for you as a project developer? That's a wrong question, I would say. Instead, a right question might be, a more suitable question might be, could you please list 2-3 issues that you have, or more if you have, while approaching the proposal writing? So you give space and time to the user to really answer in their own way, no? And it's much richer for you also as a person who's collecting data, because you are probably going to discover something that you didn't think of. So I think that that's the key. And that's it's more difficult than what we're saying in the end, in the sense that there are a lot of biases, no? Also in understanding the problem that we want to solve. So the first phase is all about allowing this bias to decrease their importance and their influence. So you should propose open questions, I would say.
Okay, so avoiding yes or no questions and find the right balance between too much general questions and too much broad, too much straight questions. Okay.
Yeah, in a way,
Okay.
yes, or also yes and no. You can, include this kind of question once that the user has identified a problem. Then maybe you can go deeper into it, and then of course you have space for asking yes and no question in a way. But at the beginning, you should really be open to leave the time and the space to the users to define the problem themselves.
Okay. Yeah, because in this, in any stages, but in this one particular, it's not like it's more like a brainstorming, but not so much. It in between a workshop and a brainstorming, it's a discussion. Is so many things in one place. Um, so what is the next step? So we found our our problem. What can we do next?
The next is the what is called ideation. Also here there are there is also different declination of the design thinking methodology. But I would say that the next point is the ideation, meaning generating an idea or more ideas that somehow are going to be structured as answer to this problem that you have found that is being validated by the user, basically. Well, ideation, a lot it has been said, it has been written. What I can share here as my personal experience is that, moreover, even more today, the way in which you set the brainstorming for the ideation process is extremely important. In the sense that you should be as open as possible and as inclusive as possible on different way through people share their ideas. I think most of the time the issues with this space is that the way in which the ideation process is set is not inclusive enough, and it doesn't allow for people to share what are the ideas, their answer to the problem that has been identified before. And we witnessed this in our own practices, where maybe I was, for example, sometimes too present into the discussion, and I didn't, as a maybe a more expert, let's say, project designer, and then I was not leaving space to the other to answer to how it will be, what there will be their ideas to solve that problem that we identified before.
Okay.
And it's very, very important instead to be open, to imagine the ideation process as a methodology that is continuous, and it's something that can constantly change. And we shouldn't get stressed about this, in the sense that it's a very open process and it is there in order to also limit the weight of possible biases. We shouldn't be afraid of changing that idea very many times. Even destroy it, I say sometimes. When we arrive to a point, at some point that we seem that we all agree, say, okay, let's destroy this again now and let's see. And sometimes people get not tired or stressed. They say, oh, look, we reached this point, let's stop there. So it's really about imagining this as a moving, the idea as a moving body, let's say, that can constantly change.
And you mentioned inclusivity. How can we try our best to keep the process as more inclusive as possible?
That's actually a very difficult question. I think it's impossible to answer to this for real, let's say. Well, I think that one of the most important things is that it helped me a lot. Well, first of all, it was participating in different design processes. This helped me a lot. Different meaning that they were formed by different people in different situations. The diversities of these processes that I was lucky and somehow privileged at some point even to participate in really made me understand that there is not one methodology, but there is the most suitable methodology for a given group. So this helped me a lot in opening up to the possibility that it's not about my methodology, but it's about a methodology that helps people to express themselves. So this helped me a lot. So the possibility that I had to participate to different processes, design processes. And another thing that it helped me a lot, that goes together with the first, was not to consider myself at the center of the process, but to give importance to the process as such, as a methodology that help everybody to to express themselves. And it is not necessarily suitable to me only. And it is not centered on me, but it's centered on everybody. That's why you need to, it's not said that you find it at the beginning. You need to try. It sounded that we speak about philosophy, but sometimes it's not like that. It's more about, for example, I don't know, setting the time of the meeting. For some people can be something important to do. Some other, they feel stressed if you set a too strict time or a too strict agenda. You need to discuss with people and you need to talk to them in order to find a solution which is good to everybody. Sometimes people are not able, they don't like or they don't feel like participating to very many meetings and they want instead to share feedback via email, no? You need to allow them to do this. So you need to find the best solution for everybody sitting on the table. So I think that the first thing that helped me was really participating in many design processes that made me understand at least not only one. The diversity of this process opened up my mind and my horizons. And the second one was not to make it about me, but to make it about the methodology itself that has to help everybody and not only me. And the third point, which goes together with this, I would say, the power of listening. For me, this was an incredible discovery because I was rather the guy that felt the urge or the pressure to express his opinion, just to express his opinion. For example, it happened to me as well still today, that I participate in some meetings where we have to design something in which there are few people there that they need to talk just to talk, like to position themselves on the table. And I realized that me too, sometimes I was doing this in the past. While instead, right now, I don't need to talk to position myself. Not necessarily. So I listen a lot, and this helped me immensely. Really. First of all, it made me feel lighter, because you don't have to be constantly interacting in this way. And secondly, it made me smarter, more intelligent, because I listen things and my mind goes, and then after, if I have to say something, it's a richer thing because I listen to everybody talking. So I would say these three things really.
Okay, thank you. We discussed the first and the second stage. The last stage, that is prototyping, can we just briefly define what is it?
Prototyping, it's basically creating prototypes, no? So draft, if you want, of your solutions, no? So of your products and output, that they help you to, in a way, test and iterate on the different ideas that you had, no? Solving again the solution. Sometimes the test phase is presented in a separate way compared to the prototype, but it can also be together because the sense of the prototype is to test it with the users. So for example, let's assume that to the solution of high cost, to the problem of difficulty in accessing the European Erasmus class proposal writing process, that is difficult, is not clear, and the application form is too time consuming, we create the solution of an artificial intelligence platform that helps you in creating content. The prototype and test will be to launch actually the platform in itself and testing with a given number of users that are going to register, subscribe to the platform and test it. So the prototype and testing can be done together in the sense that once we developed the platform internally with, for example, AI developers and experts, and we test it with a group of users, this can be one phase only. Otherwise, you can divide in prototyping, meaning the internal processes, designing the platform, and the testing it, so launching the platform in itself. In the test, so you see that in the end, everything comes back to the user. No? We started with involving the user at the beginning, the users at the beginning of the process, and right now in the testing phase, users become again central, no? Critical their role. It is. And yeah, it's really about testing as much as you can. One thing that I really learned through this is that there is not perfect output and product. If you wait for perfection, you will never get anything. Also because perfection doesn't exist and it's very subjective in any case. So it's more about really testing as much as you can, getting as many data as you can, not being afraid of analyzing the data and checking that maybe your solution was wrong or part of it were wrong, and changing them, propagating them. So it's really about looking at the test as an important phase for, again, improving the solution. So the test is not, I got successful. So in our case, was not many people registered to the platform, many people spend their credit on the platform. No. For us, the objective and the expectation, there was no expectation. The objective was, let's get as many data as possible to improve the platform. This was a mantra that I had to repeat every day. Because once you launch the platform, like a part of you is going nuts, like, okay, let's have 1,000 users joining the platform and telling me that I did a good job. If that is your aim, then the test phase, it's not going to help to help you in a way. It's not going to be useful for you. Instead, I need to work out on my expectation and saying that I am doing this in order to get data to improve the platform. And this was super useful. Because then you have users that tell you, this is amazing, fantastic, thank you. But there are also users that say, look, this can be improved. Or also users that say, look, I really don't like that. This is going to, artificial intelligence is going to take our job as a project developers. Which is actually a fair comment, all in all. So you need to cope with this kind of situations during the test phase. So the test has to be completely free to, again, re-intervene on the solution. If there is no space for it, then the test phase is useless.
I think that it's important to underline the fact that it's an iterative process. So each step you need to keep in mind that you need to collect feedback and start from the beginning again, isn't it?
Exactly. This is crucial because the user, again, are always the center of everything. So you need to be able to reconsider everything after the test phase. Otherwise, it's like, I don't know, it's biased again. It's like we said at the beginning, no? If you don't involve the users at the beginning of the process, you are assuming with your own biases and prejudice that there is a problem. But this is only you. You need to validate this, no? With a number of people telling you, it's not just about the number, but in general, the relevant people telling you, enlarging you, and contextualizing that problem. And then it's the same at the end as well. Once you have the solution, you need to test it. You don't have to be afraid of, again, reconsidering the entire solution after the test. The test is really the holistic part of the entire process, I would say. It's not the end. It's not like the publication or the launch of a thing. No. It's really still part of the design, I would say.
It's never the end. And if we think at software, this is the best example because anytime there are new patches, new improvements of the software solution. So as we said, it's a long process. So someone could say it's too time consuming, too expensive. Do you think that someone who isn't in this design way of thinking may starting applying this process to their own work on a daily life, daily work?
I would say yes, in the sense that it's you need to, let's say, be able to have a very wide and open interpretation of the theory to make it useful for you. But for us, it was, in a way that, again, at least, well, when I made the example of this platform, helping proposal developers in writing Erasmus class application, this is more a classic way through which we apply design thinking because this is a digital output, a digital product, so it's easier. But if you look at the way in which in the past we developed proposal and how we changed this thanks to design thinking, it's, I think, a good example because before we would rather develop the Erasmus class or other EU funding application or proposals, rather looking at the different call for proposal that they were published. So essentially our aim was to apply as much as possible and to prove ourselves that we could write as much as possible. And this brought us to a certain level, which was good, but at some point it was not what we really wanted to do. We had to focus on the feasibility of the project, if they were funded. And then we completely redefined the way in which we develop and we design a proposal, not a project.
Uh-huh.
That was more about, let's look look at the capacity that we have as a team to develop certain output inside the project, and to problems that we identified, different communities that we want to work with. And let's try to bring funding to them through our proposals. And this was like a Copernican revolution, in the sense that it was not anymore about monitoring the call for proposal and defining proposal answering to this call. But then it was, no, let's sit, let's discuss a problem. Or let's discuss about people we want to work with. That's a completely different thing, completely different. So our methodology of work changed. It was not anymore about each of us looking for monitoring different website with different call for proposals, but it was about more us sitting together and talking about how we felt about the world. Because that's what it is when you identify a problem in society, or when you want to share groups of people that you want to work with or for. So our methodology of work changed radically, I would say. And it's a very stupid example, because, I mean, banal example, little example, because the work that we do in the end is pretty standard, I would say. It's not that we we go to the moon, or we prototype and we produce hard stuff, no? Our work is really soft in this way, no? Soft skills, and we produce soft things. So
But just changing perspective, everything that comes after changed as well.
completely, it changed our procedure. After, of course, we always apply to and we develop proposals, but the way in which we do it has changed radically, completely. And it also brought to different results, for example, which is also the other revolution that we witnessed ourselves, or we should say maybe we made in a way. But at the design level, the way in which this changed our job was really radical, and it took us time to adapt, because each of us had this urge to go to the proposal like that we're not doing enough, no? And this was even ugly at the beginning, like to forgive ourselves for something that we were doing that we shouldn't forgive ourselves. We were actually working. It was just different, no? And it was very, very difficult to accept. So once you enter in a way of doing and working, changing this, it's very, very difficult, in my opinion.
Okay, so be kind with yourself if at this first time is really challenging. Okay, thank you. So just to conclude our session, I would like to ask you, based on your experience, if you can give us few advice on what to do and what not to do when we approach to design thinking.
Yeah, I would say to really understand, I would say maybe one advice is that to consider this both as a methodology and as a set of tools and resources, and not just a methodology, I would say, because there are different tools and resources that can really help you in understanding the applicability of the design thinking methodology to your own practices. Another thing is not to think that this methodology is going to solve everything. It's not going to be like that. The way in which you read the methodology and the way in which you apply depends on you and not on the methodology in itself. So this is not a solution that is going to be fit for everybody, or that is going to radically solve issues that you have in the way in which you work, for example, or in the way in which you identify a problem or a given solution. So imagine this as a tool that can support you, but after, change starts always within oneself, I would say. Another thing is to be, well, this has been also done in a way, to be open to as well change the theory in itself. So to consider element of inclusiveness and inclusivity in general in the theory, given that this theory was somehow designed 70 years ago, it probably doesn't contain all the elements that are essential today. So for example, how you set a process that will be suitable to very many people and not just to you as a person. So to be open to include these features, these elements, these reflections inside the design thinking methodology. I think to me, understanding this And the importance of this, it has been the first step to understand that for me, the processes that you set in a room are more important than the result that you achieve in that room. This is very, very important for me, to me. It has been like really super important. And then you go to a meeting, the most important thing is that as many people as possible feel well in that meeting. Is more important than the output of the meeting. This is very, discovering design thinking and changing it, making it mine, let's say, made me discover this. So the importance of setting processes where people feel well, not don't feel bad, but feel well. And this is important, more important than results. So when we designed a proposal, when we decided the platform, for us it was really about being happy while doing it. But I don't say this in a stupid way, really. But maybe happy is a little bit too naive. But feeling well while doing that, knowing that there will be difficult time, knowing that at some point you need to do difficult stuff. Work is also this. But the majority of time that we spend together, it should be time in which we are okay. We feel well. That we grow. We feel well. I don't know how to say this better than this way. So it's not really about what do we do, what we achieve in terms of, I don't know, number of users on the platform, number of proposals that we send for the March deadline. So I think that this was the big lesson for me of studying a design thinking methodology and applying it in practice. So try to make out something that really help in this way, that it help you to deset yourself from results and rather set yourself from feeling yourself and people around you well. So in this way it would be amazing, I think.
Very disruptive advice, since our current society is very focused on results.
It's still. I mean, I'm not that young anymore, but we grew in a society in which results were everything. And right now I see that this is shifting a lot, even if it's not enough. But still there are more and more people saying this and theorizing about the importance of processes rather than the results. But I agree with you that still the majority of processes are set towards the results and goals, let's say. And I think that this is a little bit sad, but I think we can change this little by little. I mean, we did change it in a world that is very standard. So I believe that there are people doing this at a more relevant level, and I don't know, maybe this will at some point be more spread than what it is today. Or at least, look, I am doing this, and we are doing this as a team group. To be 100% honest with you, again, working on results, not to change the world, but we are doing this because that's what we need. So we need that room is okay for us. So we will have we will be super happy if everybody will do this, or that we can learn from other people doing that, and if the world will shift toward this. But that's not why we do it. We do it for ourselves, to stay well in that room ourselves. So, I think after more people will apply this, because I don't know, these kind of issues are becoming very important, I would say.
And we suggest our community to start approaching in this way, more related to wellness, to human centered approach, to empathy. Yes. Thank you, Luigi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and your valuable insight. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Green Fashion Dialogues. We hope you will find our discussion insightful and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. You can also follow the Stars Project on social media to stay updated on our latest initiatives and events. Remember, together we can make fashion more sustainable and inclusive. Until next time, I'm Simona Vettore, and this has been Green Fashion Dialogues.